Hi, so today we are going to go through 10 more tips in 3DCoat. So I'm going to try my best to explain those and how they could help you in your workflow and in your mission to create 3D assets in 3DCoat. Tip number 1. Create VDMs correctly by troubleshooting detail loss. This tip is pretty useful for capturing VDMs. Requirements are a relatively thick cylinder like mine that is 1 million polygons or less. Make sure to sculpt the VDM as a surface mode layer. Now try capturing the VDM. If it does not work, increase the geometry depth and density in the layer. This forces 3DCoat to actually capture geometry. Flat result. Now let's try increasing depth. Tip number 2. Clean your multi-resolution/subdivision base mesh. Voxel mode topology is bad for even geometry distribution. Problem is that simply switching to surface mode won't change it. What happens under the hood is that 3DCoat is simply just trying to smooth out the topology so it looks better. You can replicate this by yourself using the clean geometry command in the geometry menu. So there is only two fast solutions that 3DCoat offers here to fix your base mesh, so that each new sub-D level does not produce artifacts. Keyword is fast. First and most consistent and clean solution is instant meshes. You get uniform density and pretty good quads. I recommend to do it with a value as high as your PC can handle. Perfection. Not one artifact and even distribution. Now you can increase sub-D and use your high quality VDM textures. Method number 2 is just Autopo. Same drill but more luck based. And don't even bother if your mesh has spikes or complicated details. Even clean your topology, though some parts might need some manual hand tweaking, but as you can tell, density is assigned like I put it, even better than instant meshes. Topology, except for the teeth, is pretty usable for animations, and you get some nice edge flow. Decimated. Okay. Get it. No, not decimated actually, it's the voxelize. Tip number 3. When to use VDMs, copy clay, and the import brush. This one is straightforward. All three mentioned brushes, pick and paste, copy clay, and import are useful in their own unique ways. Before starting, make sure to understand the only two organic sculpting workflows that 3DCoat offers. First is the usual dirty sculpting workflow, which involves voxel mode in building mass and the surface mode for manipulating polygons more manually. This is 3DCoat's wildcard and a unique system where you can tweak and modify every single part of your mesh manually. Unlike ZBrush, 3DCoat does not rely on its second option, which is the multi-resolution or subdivision workflow. Multires is more made for an instant bake mesh with well-allocated quad density, as well as deformation-ready topology. Multires is flexible and simple, but less forgiving since you're stuck with the same base topology. Copy clay and import directly modify topology, while all VDMs do is displace the same quads that existed before, the only multi-res friendly option. Let's start with the first clay option, copy clay. Copy clay, a surface mode and voxel but preferably surface feature, is very useful to an extent not many can comprehend. Essentially, you get to copy and paste a certain detail of your mesh, but you keep all small details on it, no matter the size. It does also give you a clean surrounding edge, no bevels or anything. Infinite details. Second one, but not the most known, is the import brush. To activate it, go to the import tool and press on brush to make it a brush. You can customize yaw, roll, and all forms of rotation and offset, which is pretty handy. Use this one for more complicated details that copy clay cannot really handle. For an example, a wing. That is something that copy clay is not really made for. This brush also produces a sharp bevel, which you can smooth Any OBJ file can be imported as this brush, but anything in the millions will nuke your PC. Very useful. Last one is the VDM, better than copy clay and import when it comes to higher frequency details, and it keeps the topology as it is. This brush works like magic for most meshes when adding some nice detail. So far, my experience with it has been only good so far. But for some unknown reason, this brush holds a grudge against overhangs that software like ZBrush can produce flawlessly. The tip of the scales here is visibly blunt because of the design flaw. I think it needs updating and probably has to do with how VDMs are baked. 3DCoat probably guesses how to displace your brush detail by itself. ZBrush, on the other hand, restricts this to a plane with the grid topology and layers, so it seems to calculate the displacement without guessing or luck. For 2D/Z axis only displacement, I recommend sticking with alphas because 3DCoat does not export those into anything other than AXR. Tip number 4. Use surface mode height for retopologizing inside or tight spaces. Want to see how I did the retopology as clean as this one? Well, here's the secret for some select parts, mainly the insides. I basically just use surface mode height to see a cut version. This way you can see all around the insides and place quads and stuff in there without getting perspective distortion. I used freeze and height for the tongue to get it out of the way. Enable double-sided normals because these can actually prevent quad placement on the visible surface, since the other is invisible but still catches your stroke. Tip number 5. Create custom curves the proper way. This one is simple. Basically, the only tip here is that you should only create curves using low poly meshes, no voxel mode meshes at all. There is an array of reasons: performance, sub-D readiness, and clean reflections and topology. As you can see, this ain't possible in voxel mode without a resolution of 1 gazillion polygons, which probably isn't the most fun. Autopo can work great for this, but manual retopology is more consistent and fast. Here is a little topology tip you can use for 4-2 quad connections, which is just a diamond-shaped quad. Do some alignment tricks to improve smoothness, like using the relax tool, scale tool, and others. Then add your bevels. These are necessary for surface interpolation and subdivision readiness. Maybe refine in Blender later, since it has the loopholes add-on with more hard surface features. Imagine that the large voxel one and the surface mode array I made here almost have the same poly count. You get more for far less. Tip number 6. Set up Autopo correctly. Step 1. Enable symmetry if you need to. Better results if the object is already symmetrical. Step 2. Adjust poly count. Make sure it is manageable for your PC. I usually go for 100k if it's full body or 20k for this head bust. Step 3. Set quality to the maximum, since you can just easily wait out the computer doing something. It is generally the best. Also, disable the hard surface option anyways, because all it seemingly does is replace your guide strokes with some AI made ones, that are bad on both hard surface and organic stuff. Step 4. Set capture detail depending on what you want to be taken for consideration of your model retopo mesh. I put it at 70%. Step 5. Make sure voxelize before quadrangulation is always on, because that way it's way more likely to produce a good result, this way with no artifacts or bugs. This step is crucial because if the number of polygons is over 100k, it will take long. Also, this affects the resolution of your mesh, which is very important. Step 6. Set the decimative above to anything around 50k for most organic models, because it decimates not to ruin resolution, it just takes out useless triangles. Step 7 is optional, but I have had better edge flow without having smooth resulting mesh tangentially on. Step 8 is optional, but it depends if you want to paint density via freezing or set up edge flow strokes. I recommend trying. If you want to control density, convert your object quickly to surface mode just to make sure that the density paint/freeze does not disappear after the first try. And would you look at that? Now this isn't perfect. I should have put the edge flow thingies here to make it better, but this doesn't look all that bad actually. It is pretty clean in my opinion. Right, so there you have it. So try to set up the correct settings for auto retopology. Tip number 7. Use surface mode smooth instead of voxel mode in some cases. A common behavior when using voxel smoothing is that the mesh may have holes torn through it because of that tool. This is because voxel smoothes out the entire volume in 3D, and layers of surface in this case do affect each other. The alternative is using the surface version of the smooth brush. Reason is that it smooths in a different way that retains thickness and volume. The reason is that each layer of surface is independent of the other, because this version uses topology/triangles as the only connector. Tip number 8. Mask out high frequency VDMs correctly, mostly z-axis or alpha displacement. For this one we will use a single extra painting layer, so this has nothing to do with actual painting, only masking. We will use a paintbrush instead of extrude, making sure to amp up the paint opacity to oblivion, a very humble 50,000% in my case. Now extrude. All scales should be painted out, and preferably to make the painting apply to even the grooves, throwing some negative displacement in there or some noise even. Now pull this power move. As you can see, the intersection is minimized. You will still need some quick masking right before the outlines to protect the grooves too. Check this out. The random borders make the pattern look very non-tiled, almost as if it was hand sculpted. No repeating patterns or anything. However, this does not mean that you can use a bad low quality VDM and still get good results. So ideally, use an alpha. Because 3DCoat gives VDMs its own estimated black and white paint mask, which are not always accurate. And yeah, the pros for VDMs though are that they do have negative displacement. Tip number 9. Use cavity maps for sculpting better scales. This tip is more style related than other technical things, but it can sure help. Basically, we will use a smart material to make our own sculpted scales pop out more. The main point will be avoiding the scales looking too flat. First of all, sculpt some nice scales to use this nice material on. Now change your cavity map baker settings and set it to the old method, because it catches more details. You can also use the RGB one if your object has bigger non-high frequency scales like this ball, which was my mistake. Now create a smart material and use that cavity map as a condition or mask. Also, I just wanted to add this. You can make the mask look better if it's done in a baked low poly version with textures by using curves. While 3DCoat does have contrast settings and brightness, only Substance Painter, Photoshop or Paint.net allowed me to edit such with a specific curve. You could try using material shaders if those do work. One better approach is to just use the raw mesh, though it does require an extra software. But this is the best method due to the software's cavity baking and speed. However, this method removes all layers from the 3DCoat file, so be aware. In ZBrush, do a mask by cavity, however, make the profile a soft dome shape. You can probably make it smoother than mine in this case. The main goal is to only include some of the top area of the scale, no crevices. We are trying to dent the flat areas. Now with the intensity set to 1 or with photo edited more dark version of the clay buildup alpha, try denting the unmasked area inwards. Then smooth the selection. And would you look at that, extra detail for little effort. Now you are thinking, well, 3DCoat can't really import high poly meshes to begin with, so what do I do now? Turns out you can. I will show you in tip number 10. Number 10, best for last, importing high poly meshes to 3DCoat without running out of memory. This one will look like you are doing some video game exploit, while in fact you are just 3D sculpting. Step number 1, import via import for Autopo. Don't pick anything else, not even manual retopology or per vertex painting. Disable voxelize before quadrangulation. Now do something right after confirming your settings. Mash the escape button as if you are playing a clicker game. Once a new prompt appears, this is to cancel the summation and keep the mesh pure. If 3DCoat freezes instantly as this prompt appears, then you have succeeded. Though a couple triangles, probably less than 100, could get chipped off your mesh. Though this was the case when I did it with a 40 million polygon surface mesh, so that barely makes any difference. Remember though that some software, especially ZBrush, have a habit of ruining transformation or size of your model. Keep this in mind. So before exporting and importing, do all objects in one go. Do not lose sync, so that stuff like eyes and teeth sit right with the rest of the body. Also, after doing this, 3DCoat's pivot system got glitched for me and forced me to click edit or reset to default settings. This happens when you pull a high memory eating move. Once happened with me when I used a large VDM, which I applied. And this was it. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video helped to some extent. Also, some of these tips were inspired by some other tutorials made by other YouTubers, namely Hagani Paleoart and Jared Chav. All I did here mostly was just translate those tips to 3DCoat. I don't have links to the direct videos, but feel free to check them out for other techniques.